Okay, so first of all, which one's Matt, which one's Reece?
Okay, I'm Matt, that's yeah.
Do you have specific sides you stand on, like ant deck, or is it?
Yeah, we actually, well, if we do talk, actually, I'm usually that side.
Really?
Yeah, do you want to swap?
Can do, if you want.
Yeah. Usually, I try and stand on the taller side of the hill.
Okay. yeah, I do that a lot. I stand next to Graham.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think for most of the people here know you, but for all the kind of people watching at home, tell us a very kind of quick overview of kind of why you're here, what you've done to earn your place on the sofa.
Yeah, sure. All right. Well, we know nothing about motorbikes, so not much to earn the place on the sofa. But we are the foremost scooter and sidecars on planet Earth. That is because we believe there is two of them, and they're both on this sofa. We are hold the Guinness World Record for the longest journey by scooter and sidecar, and we're the first people to ever go around the world on a scooter with a sidecar. Before doing it, we'd never been on a motorbike before. We just planned it, got a test, drove off. We knew nothing about mechanics or anything like that. And then we thought that would kind of be it for bikes and stuff for us. It was just a big charity challenge and a fun thing to do. We came back from the trip, we got our normal jobs back. COVID hit, and we started something called the Armchair Adventure Festival, which is a virtual event about adventure travel. And it kind of blew us back into the world of adventure again. And we ended up leaving our jobs to focus on the adventure festival. And then that led into working with Ural on sidecars again. So we went sort of full circle back into the world of sidecars. So now we're full-time Sidecar Guys and run a Ural dealership and run Ural experience days where you can come and learn to ride sidecars with a sort of green lady up in Northumberland.
Good plug.
Yeah. If anyone wants to go.
We didn't quite ourselves as Sidecar Guys.
No.
We were arriving at an event in my Renault Clio at the time, and someone went, the radio, all the Sidecar Guys are here, because they didn't know our names. So from there, people started calling us the Sidecar Guys. We're like, okay, we'll be the Sidecar Guys. Yeah.
That's stuck ever since.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's an interesting story where you went on. I mean, you've done what a lot of people look at, kind of going around the world and things like that, on motorcycles and things like that. And as far as I can tell, what you did, you went, let's go around the world on motorcycles, but how can we make it worse?
Yeah.
And then what you've done is you've gone, oh, well, let's do it with a sidecar motorcycle. And then you've gone, oh, no, wait, let's do it with a scooter with a... So, how? Why did that even come into being? How did it start?
So, the idea of going around the world in some fashion came first. And then we knew we wanted it to be inconvenient. And we were trying to work out what was inconvenient. We even went through things that weren't motorcycles. Like at one point we discussed Flintstoning. Like,
Seriously?
Yeah. We did seriously discuss it.
Yeah.
And then we realised we didn't have the cars.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. There were quite a lot of cars. Right?
Yeah.
And then it was something to do with like I don't know, the sort of Wallace and Gromit sort of style of scooter and sidecar.
Yeah.
Right? It looked gimmicky. It looked silly. We did look at not just standard motorcycles and sidecars, and it just kind of seemed like quite achievable. We knew people had done it, but no one had done a scooter and sidecar before. So that's kind of what we were like, oh, we'll give that a go. And then the fact that it was so inconvenient, we knew it was going to sort of create problems and stuff going around. We knew we'd break down a lot. And so the kind of premise of the trip is
Can I just say, who goes, I know what bike I'd choose to go around the world. This one will break down a lot. That's the one for me. Who does that?
Yeah.
No, it does not.
So the goal of the trip was like, is the world a friendly place or is it not? That's kind of what we were thinking at the time. And we knew we'd break down. And it was sort of, we knew nothing about bikes, so it was all about would people help or would they not, sort of thing. And they did. The problem is they didn't know how to fix it. So it was that help was irrelevant. No, it was super helpful. But yeah, that's why I screwed with sidecar. And actually, it turned out to be really practical because you have lots of extra space. You've got a stabilizer, so you never fall over. And everyone likes you because it looks silly. Yeah.
Do they like you or do they feel sorry for you?
Yeah, well, there was that. They did get given a lot of free food.
Yeah.
I like that. It's like, oh yeah, traveling through third world countries and we better feed them.
Yeah, that really happened. Yeah. But yeah, the point was to be vulnerable, to see if people would help us or choose us and split us out.
Yeah.
Or that they helped.
So, obviously, I kind of don't want to jump around a bit now, but when you were on the trip, you're saying about you specifically wanted something that would go wrong, so that it would allow you to experience the people that are out there, and kind of. So, did you have any kind of? I know when I've done a lot of travelling and things like that, then I've almost universally had fantastic kind of interactions with people. But is there anything that kind of, what one would you say stands out?
Oh God, there were so many. I mean, the biggest, probably singular one was we were a couple of weeks into scooting home on the Trans-Siberian Highway from Vladivostok back to the UK, and we got our seasons wrong. It was winter, so it was like minus 30, minus 40. It was really chilly on a scooter in those temperatures, and we were miserable with each other because everyone said, "Don't do it, you will die," and we thought, "I might be all right." And then we're 2 weeks in, we thought, "Oh, we are going to die," and it hit home for the first time. Like, this wasn't a good idea, mate. We've pushed it way too far this time. We actually are really unsafe. And our only respite was these little coffee shops were about every 100 miles on the road. And one day we were sat in one of these coffee shops, miserable, trying to warm our hands and fingers up on a cup of borscht. And in walked this guy who introduced himself as Santa Claus and told us, his name was Klaus, introduced himself as Santa Claus, and told us he was there just to see us. And he'd been following us on our spot tracker, and he'd come out to see if we were okay. He told us all this in broken Russian, and he basically reported back to Russian Facebook that they're not okay, they're definitely going to die, and we need to do something to help. And the Russian motorbike community answered, and every town or village thereafter, there was like people with bikes on the side of the road, signs saying Matt and Reece pull in here, and we just received like the most insane hospitality for 4 or 5 weeks along the Trans-Siberian Highway, didn't we?
That's amazing.
Vodka. I mean, drink Russian vodka for 5 weeks. That's changed. It's one of the rocks on my head. It was crazy time. Yeah, so that was probably the biggest one. But there was, I mean, all around the world, people were helping us out, eh?
Yeah.
Is there any time you found where you felt the opposite, where either you felt slightly threatened or just you didn't feel particularly comfortable in a country?
Not really, not never for people. It was sort of like, you definitely do that thing of like, I don't know, we definitely found like the early stages, we did certain things whereby like, you just sort of, your mind plays tricks on you. We were camping like probably the second time ever we wild camped, we wild camped in Albania, and we camped on this beach. And just as we were nervously trying to find a spot, it was getting dark, and we thought, all of a sudden we'll go here. And as we sort of were putting our tent up, this car drove up to the top, but it was like a sort of like a climb down. And he looked down at us, and then got back in his car and drove way back as he came. We were like, that's dodgy. And then at about 10:30 at night, it was pitch black, quiet, and a car pulled back up right at the top, and we were obviously worried about this man from before. And so we were sort of, do we go and sort of like, what do we do? Do we get out of the tent? Do we go and hide? I don't know. And there was sort of weird sounds coming from around the tent, and that actually turned out to be wild dogs, so it wasn't anyone. But then we actually sort of plucked up the courage to sort of sneak up around the car, walk past it, and then we decided, we've got to do something. It's not going to sort of...
You know, that person was probably sitting in the car going, who are these dodgy guys walking around my car?
And we walked back, knocked on the window.
This terrified person in a car.
It was 3 kids hotboxing their car. And they were like...
We scared them to death.
They were horrified. 2 British guys just be like, hello. So it was like nothing ever actually materialised as like scary from a meeting people search. It was always only stuff that we were sort of conjuring in our heads could be scary, and it never turned out that way.
Yeah. That's fantastic. I mean, did you find it, I mean, because, okay, let's backtrack a bit. So, how did you guys first meet? I mean, what's your process that made you become friends and then decide, let's go around the world on a scooter like idiots?
We're all school pals, went to school together. We had a history of doing silly charity challenges together. The first thing we did was shave our heads for charity when we were like 14 or whatever. We were always those idiots in school, so doing fun stuff. And we always wanted to do a big thing, we always wanted to just go and do something big. Like, I think we grew up in a generation where everyone said to us, you could do anything. And we thought, oh, well, we should do anything. So we did.
That's a challenge set.
Yeah, challenge accepted, yeah. So we did it. And I think I always wanted to do Guinness World Record just because I thought they were weird and fun. And we just got presented with a time in life where we were both in a job we didn't really want. And we kind of had no responsibility. So let's see if we can get the money together to do it. And a company said, yeah, all right, we'll sponsor you some money. So it just actually happened, you know. And the chances are it should have just been one of those pub conversations that drifted off into nothingness, like a million other stupid ideas we've had. But this one just kind of stuck, and we went, really.
So that's how I ended up with shop.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So you mentioned the Guinness World Record. So what is the actual Guinness World Record you hold?
It's the longest journey by scooter from Sidecar.
Yeah.
Okay. So did you set out to do that?
Yes.
Yes. We wanted the record just because, I don't know, it just seemed like the appropriate thing to try and get.
Yeah.
Not that we're particularly precious about it. It's a very niche record to sort of be like, yes, we've got the record for the longest journey by scooter in Sidecar. It's probably up there with, I don't know, longest fingernails.
It's not like this is impressive as that.
We did one at a time.
Yeah.
So did you find that, because I've spoken to a few other people that have done motorcycle-based records, and a couple of them have actually said they completely regret it, that because they had to do these various bits and bobs. I don't want to name names, but but they're doing things where they have to do a certain thing in a certain time and be at a certain place, and suddenly they realise they haven't fully experienced what's going on because they've been so focused on the record, and at the end they get home and they've got a bit of paper and they're like, well, I didn't really experience anything. But I'm guessing that's not really the case because you're doing longest distance.
Well, it's a really cool bit of paper, Tom. It's really thick. It's got this shiny
I'm just being bitter because I don't have one.
I'll tell you what, for us, lots of people we've talked about this, they've built up their whole lives, they've saved their life savings, they've sold their house over, they want to go on the road for 5 years and really know what it's like to be at Lake Malawi or whatever. We were just a couple of idiots on a charity challenge. We didn't feel like we needed to, I wanted to go travelling and meet people and stuff, but I didn't feel like I needed to tick off the big 5 on that trip. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't that kind of vibe. It was always like, can I do this challenge and get home alive?
But there were definitely things that sort of like made that, I kind of mean like the trip sort of changed and you sort of like, it's kind of like the record but also like the response and stuff, like you have these like extra commitments which do change the dynamic of it. So like, after a long drive, we would just be on like social media because the sponsors, you feel like you're obliged to, and then equally the record was, we couldn't stop in one place for longer than something like 2 weeks, so you had to keep going. It's the reason that we actually ended up doing the Trans-Siberian in winter, because we weren't allowed to stop, like I said, anywhere for a certain amount of time, otherwise we'd fail.
So you couldn't wait until spring?
The time of year we couldn't go the other way, so we were forced to do that, otherwise we wouldn't have got it. So, we've always sort of described it as like, some people go on those trips and it's like, it's kind of like, I think, if that's like the thing that they've built up their life to that moment, whereas maybe because we were a bit younger, it was kind of like, it kind of felt like a pivotal point, but not like the main point, if that kind of makes sense. I don't know,
So I mean, before I go on to trying to figure out how you made a scooter and a sidecar work, I mean, the thing that does interest me is the dynamic between the two of you. I mean, that's, whenever I've seen, two people go off and do trips, everything from Charlie and Ewan to me and Graham, you'll have times when you fall out and get fed up with each other and stuff like that. And with you guys, you don't even have that bit where you get on a bike, and when you're on the bike, you can be in your own little world, and you can separate. You're always together. How did that dynamic even work? Surely you must have got pissed off with each other.
Well, we always say, a lot of people say you've got, if you do a big trip with someone, you've got a huge amount of respect for them, you know, and be really good understanding for them.
That's the problem with me and Graham.
Yeah, well, that's it. Yeah, but the polar opposite is we think you can also have a complete lack of respect for them. And so as a result of that, our kind of policy was like, yeah, we did get angry with each other and bicker and stuff, but the problem was, if I was ever annoyed with Matt, he didn't care, and if he was ever annoyed with me, I didn't care. Yeah. So it was kind of like a thing like you have to get over it in your own way.
Because you know that in their soul, they don't care if you're angry. I know it's not good at it, so just get over it yourself and move on.
Yeah, kind of,
yeah. Or just turn your headset off.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. But I mean, yeah, I think also, I think maybe it's, I guess we got, I think, fairly chilled out. So, like, you know, it was always like, if someone really wanted to do something that day, the other one was like, all right, yeah, I'll do that, sure. There was never really like conflict of like, oh, I want to do this or I want to do that, and if there was, we just kind of go and do those things.
Yeah.
We're very simple people.
So, yeah, the sidecar. So you've got. I just can't quite get my head around why you decided a scooter would be better than a sidecar, and even where you found a scooter with a sidecar.
Yeah.
Did you build it yourself?
We had it built, basically.
Right. Okay.
You can't just buy it off the shelf. We looked for ages to try and find a combo. Couldn't find one. And then one day we just stumbled upon this guy in a bank, Reece's stepmom, bumped into him, and I happened to tell him the story of what we were wanting to do. And he said, well, get them to come and have a chat with me. His name was Charlie Prescott. We had no options. We approached all the Sidecar manufacturers, they weren't interested. So we went to meet Charlie, and about 20 minutes later he was cooking up plans with his brother Richard to build us the Sidecar. And we just said, okay, we'll just do it then, because we have no other option. We had no idea how much money it would cost us. We had no idea if these guys could build a sidecar. We just said yes. And about, I don't know, 6 weeks later or something, I had taken him a scooter, and they had built this amazing looking sidecar on the side of it. And I said to him, like, that's amazing. How much money do you owe? You thinking it's going to be like way more than I have? And he said, I don't want your money, boy. I'm just pleased to see a lad of your generation not watching the telly. so there we go. And then we just went off on a happy day. So yeah.
Fantastic.
And then he became like, Charlie was like our biggest tech guy. He was like, call back to Charlie. How does a bearing work, Charlie?
Oh wow, you were that unprepared.
Oh yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah, you know what bearing was when it fell out in the Sahara.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's lots of little balls in there. Strange, isn't
it? Yeah. So that's how we got a scooter and sidecar. And then in terms of why, I mean, it was because it was impractical, but actually, like Reece kind of hinted at earlier, they're really quite practical because you don't have to do anything, you just do that. It's actually mega comfy just to sit there.
So no gears or anything on it?
There's no gears, nothing complicated.
So what scooter was it?
Then it was a Honda SH300i.
Yeah.
And that was because Charlie said, get that one.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, we looked at like maxi scooters, but they just didn't really feel for us like a proper scooter.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh, can we get like a 150cc? And he was like, no, I won't do it if you get that. He said, you can get it. The Honda SH300i, that's the only one that I think you should be doing it on because it's capable. And to be fair, it was really capable.
Yeah.
I mean, for something that definitely shouldn't have a sidecar on the side for what we were doing with it, it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
It was awesome. Yeah.
So have you been tempted since with the Honda ADVX?
Absolutely not.
Does everyone know what the ADVX is? It's the Honda, they call it the adventure scooter.
Yeah.
And it is a scooter, but it's got like knobbly tyres and it's got proper suspension. It's an incredible piece of kit.
Yeah.
You've never tried one?
It was first coming out when we were looking at the trip actually. They started hinting it, I think, at the time. And we thought it'd be good, but then we decided that what we really wanted was a Vespa or something. We wanted something that was like a proper scooter or a Lambretta or something like that. You know?
Yeah.
But then Charlie convinced us to go Honda because it might work. We just kind of let him do that. But we definitely what didn't want was that bike. What was it called? The Honda?
ADVX.
We didn't want that because it was too capable. The whole point was supposed to be that it was garbage. Yeah, it was.
And you got it around the world?
Yeah.
Fantastic. What route did you take? Because you went
Yeah,
you went backwards, didn't you?
Yeah, we went. London to Greece, and then shipped it to Alexandria in Egypt, and then drove the east coast of Africa down to Cape Town. And then we shipped it to Santiago in Chile, and pretty much drove to Vancouver. We actually tried to drive to Alaska, and broke down 400 kilometres from the border.
Oh, puppy, sorry.
Broke Alaska right there. Yeah. Broke down 400 kilometres from the border, and so we had basically our drive bar snapped. We had one spare, but it was really damaged. So there's no guarantees it was going to make us to Alaska and get us back to Vancouver in time. But already by that point we were driving that way, we'd already booked our ship to Vladivostok in Russia.
Yeah.
So then we went back to Vancouver, shipped to Vladivostok in Russia, and then drove back along the Trans-Siberian Highway back to the UK basically. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. It was really fun.
Best bit?
Oh, it's so hard. But best bits always follow the worst bits, don't they?
Yeah.
Worst bit, snowy, cold day in Siberia. Best bit, being naked in a banyan with a bunch of 7-year-old Russian guys getting their bellies and drinking vodka.
I agree.
Fair play. You just distance yourself from that one.
There were so many cool bits. Going down for Africa was like because we just we're going to go straight for Africa and see what it's like, and you're just driving along and there's camels, there's elephants, and you're just surrounded by.
It's not a zoo.
It's not a zoo.
They're just there.
Yeah. And that's just like mind blowing.
Yeah.
You were doing that for the first time as well. Yeah, that's just so cool.
What kind of speeds could it do?
We once got it to 88. And that
No
was,
way.
That was before we
Big hill, man.
Yeah, it was before we left actually going to Bristol. But no, in general, like it was like best height of 50 miles an hour. Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Once you go uphill, then
yeah.
through the Andes, we had to push it.
Yeah.
Because there's no option for it.
Yeah.
Too much weight and stuff.
So I remember because I took a Honda C90 down through Africa to Gambia. And I remember, because it only does about 35, 40 mile an hour.
Yeah.
And I remember the first day of going to the Sahara Desert, it's like, oh, wow. Driving the Sahara Desert, it's amazing. On day 4, and it all looked exactly the same. It was getting a bit boring. And then I did it the next year in a Super Tenere. Did the whole thing in a day. But yeah, because it's a different experience on a scooter. So who did most of the driving, or did you kind of swap and?
Straight spot.
You got like 70, 80 miles to a tank, and then we just switch over. Yeah.
There's no competition to drive because you both know there's lots of miles left to do.
Yeah. Lots of sleeping in the sidecar.
A lot of sleep, especially with places like like the Sahara, because we had a metal roof, so it kind of acts like a greenhouse. So you'd be so warm because you're in the Sahara, but then you'd be extra warm because you were in a greenhouse essentially going along. And then it was literally like we'd have 2 coffees in the morning, and then within 10 minutes, a person sat in the sidecar was just you look to your left and you go on, and they were like this. It's just so easy for sleeping. Yeah.
So the sidecar was on. You had the sidecar on your left.
Yes.
Yeah, which is how they do it in the UK.
Yeah.
But then abroad, it's normally on the other side, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that was
So you didn't prepare it for.
Well, we looked into it, but you can't do it. Basically, what you could do, you'd have to register it outside of the UK.
Oh,
So it
okay.
has to be, if it's a UK registered vehicle, it has to be on the left-hand side.
Okay.
And then wherever you go, it's always by the laws of the country of origin, basically, with the cycling. So basically, the majority of the countries we were driving around the side, and then if you want to overtake or something, you just nudge the person in the sidecar out to the middle of the road to be like, no.
To be absolutely terrified and not in control.
Yeah.
So then you got back from your trip, and you put together a book and a film. Am I right?
Yeah. Still going on film. Yeah.
I was going to say, because we had a conversation not long after you got back. I did an interview with you in the show, and then you were like, "Yeah, it won't be long until we get the video." Are we getting anywhere with it?
Well, yes, we are. Yeah. So Matt wrote the book, I did the film, and to be honest, it was like the first year I was like, let's do this, and then it was like, I don't even know where to start. So it's really hard for me to do. Which was like, well, you'll know better than me, sort of thing. So it was just sort of really quite hard to like comprehend how to make a film, really, in its entirety. But now, yeah, eventually got my head around it. We decided to do episodes, and I'm like halfway through, so I've basically got to Cartagena, but we shipped around the diary and stuff like that. And that's been, we screened a few places and stuff like that, and it's been received well, I think. But I literally, finishing that point, we started doing all the other stuff, and then now it's just kind of got pushed further down the list of priorities until, I think I said it, well, we had that conversation before, but genuinely the end of this year, like, I think I might be able to finish it. That's the goal.
So speaking of the other stuff, now, so you came back and COVID hit and you did the Armchair Festival. Yeah. Now, I know firsthand that was incredibly well received by the kind of motorcycle and adventure market, you know, because suddenly all the big festivals, ABR, Overland, Hub and things like that had all gone, there's nothing happening. Yeah. And you guys kind of stepped up, which has been fantastic, but that's grown into something much bigger.
Yeah. Well, the first festival was just crazy for us because we thought it was going to be like 40 mates on a Zoom link or something, and then we had this friend who was a tech guy and he said I could put it on YouTube if you want so it can reach loads of people, and we just sort of said yeah, and then the next thing we do, we started ringing people up and asking them to come on to do a talk or a Q&A, and they just kept saying yes because there was nothing to do. They were trapped in their house. So then we had like genuine icons of adventure biking like Charlie Borman and Alice Beard, people like that, wanting to come on our show, and we were just kind of idiots with like 500 subscribers or something. And it just blew up. We had 40,000 people tune in. It was just insane. And it raised 10 grand for the NHS that weekend, like more money than we raised for charity going around the bloody world. And it was just, it just blew up. So then in the background, Reece got made redundant because he was working in travel during COVID, and I was furloughed for ages working in charity. So we just said, should we just do some more stuff with this brand? So we did some more virtual things, and then as people got out of the lockdowns, we thought, well, should we do an in-person one? Because the people were kind of asking for it. Yeah. So then it became an in-person festival, which we held down in Cornwall on Mount Edgecombe, which was a celebration of all things adventure travel. It's not just bikes, it's kayaking, hiking, climbing, whatever you like, anything to do with adventure travel.
Yeah. And that's going brilliantly for you as well, isn't it?
Going really well, yeah. It's kind of, it's awesome. Yeah, it goes really well. Next month in July. It's a weird thing because for us, I agree with Carl about. I openly say in a weird way, if it weren't for COVID, I don't think we'd be still in sort of adventure motorcycling scene. Yeah. Just because it's just quite a hard scene to crack. And then again, it wasn't the idea to turn it into sort of like a career or anything. Yeah. It was just sort of like
accidentally fell into it.
And, but yeah, the Armchair Festival's awesome. Like people come along. I think we probably have 1,000 people there this year, and they all bring armchairs on some capacity on sidecars or just like camping chairs. And we have a competition who's brought the best armchair. And it's like this weird cult of armchair bags. And it's just a good fun celebration of adventure travel.
I think quite a lot of people I've heard quite a lot of people compare it to Hub, because obviously Hub isn't happening anymore in the UK. And obviously the Hub was always not just about motorcycle travel, it's about any kind of sort of travel and things like that. And it was, and you had Overland as well is obviously still going, but I think, you know, you filled a nice little kind of niche where Hub left out, which I think has been, you know, I've heard nothing but good things about the festival and guys that have gone. So hopefully I'll get there this year.
Yeah, we will.
Okay, so before we take a little break, I did want to ask, what next?
It's a funny thing actually. So like the whole idea of like big question always get asked is, would you do it again? And the answer I always used to give was absolutely nowhere on earth. And I was kind of like, but it was like, I wouldn't literally do it again. Would I do it for the first time knowing what I know now, 100% sort of thing. But then as the time sort of went on, I was like, I could do something like that. But then in the summer, just gone, but after the festival finished, we went to Seattle and picked up a Ural and drove to Los Angeles for like a 10-day trip across like the BDR, which is off-road stuff. And that was awesome. It was so much fun to do something again. But also it was really nice to do it in a different way where it was shorter, like time frame. And you know, it wasn't quite so, you know, if we wanted to, I don't know, have a beer or something. You didn't feel guilty about the fact you were spending money quite as much.
Yeah.
So like the smaller stuff, I think we'll definitely do in terms of like shorter duration. And there's definitely more like trips in the pipeline.
I think we want to do something smaller and more challenging. Because
Yeah.
the off-road thing was cool, but we were just borrowing like a brand's bike and we had to kind of be nice to it because we couldn't just ruin like this perfect
Yeah, that's true.
and we had to go down these like set routes. I think we'd like to do something, which is the UK one as well, around adventure. We've got a YouTube video coming out this weekend about that, good luck. But then we'd like to probably do something that is silly and really challenging again.
Yeah.
So, because getting a bit sort of...
Do I remember rightly that at one point you were talking about doing something with kayaking or canoeing or something like that?
I think one point, we talked about peddling in the UK.
That's the one, peddling around the UK.
Yeah, we did, yeah. I would still like to peddle around the UK. Yeah.
We'll do something silly soon.
Yeah.
You'd have calves of thunder if you did that. Would you just...
Exactly. Yeah. I genuinely I forgot about that. I would love to peddle around the UK. I think.
Have I just helped you, reminded you of it?
No, but yeah, I would guess like we we've got this brand of the Sidecar Guys, but I don't. On that, I guess it doesn't necessarily have to be Sidecars.
Could be the pedal guys this time next year.
Yeah.
You just like strap a canoe to the side of a pedalo,
Yeah.
and then you've got an on the water
I think
sidecar.
actually we discussed potentially some sort of pedalo sidecar.
What a weird life.
Fantastic. Right, we're going to take a little break.